Dyeing fiber is all about chemistry and has been studied for absolutely years, so really nothing is new when it comes to dyeing fiber. So why reinvent the wheel and try to figure out this really complex task? But once you understand the basics and the fundamentals, then you have the foundation to experiment and get kind of really creative. The very first thing we need to look at is dye safety for acid dyes. Safety is absolutely always first. So any tools, vessels, bottles used for dyeing with acid dyes should not be used again for any food. You should wear a NOISH approved respirator when mixing powder dyes. This is not the same as a dust mask because these dye particles are really tiny and the dust mask lets those particles through when you breathe them into your lungs. So the approved respirator for small particles is really what you want to use. Wear gloves when mixing dyes and dyeing yarn or fiber. Do not mix powder dyes in an area where you prep food. That dye dust goes everywhere. Even if you are extremely careful, it'll go on the surfaces that you cook or on plates if they're out, things like that, so just be careful. Cover your work surfaces when mixing powder dyes with paper or paper towels that have been sprayed with water to capture the dye dust. I usually put plastic wrap underneath the paper because the surface I'm working on, I really don't want to dye it. Make sure you have good ventilation in your dye area or mix your dyes and have your dye pots outside. Store dyes with lids and safely away from kids and pets. Liquid dyes can be stored up to 6 months. If stored longer, it kind of can become gooey, but you can heat that back up to sort of make it go into solution. Some dyes have a shorter shelf life, so check with your dye manufacturer for details. Do not eat, drink, or smoke in your dye area. Wear goggles to prevent splashes in your eyes. Do not mix powders near a furnace or an air conditioner intake pipes, or you're going to end up with dye dust all over your house. Avoid exposure to dye powders or toxic mordants when pregnant. Clearly label containers with type of dye, the date, and the depth of the shade. Wipe up spills immediately. Dilute acidic dye wastewater with baking soda, bringing the pH back to neutral. Acid can corrode your drain pipes over a period of time, and that's going to be really expensive to fix. So if you do this first, then you'll avoid issues down the road. Let's take a closer look at the acid used in acid dyes. So you can use vinegar, which is an acetic acid, or you can use citric acid. Acid dyes require an acidic environment to cause a chemical change where the dye permanently bonds to the fiber. Acid can be in the form of vinegar or citric acid for home use. Just take a note, dye results can vary when using citric acid versus acetic acid, so it's really good to sample to see if it's something that you like. When acid is present, the dye strikes to the fiber faster, so if you want more migration of color or more even dyeing, hold the addition of acid till later in the dyeing process. If you want less migration of color, you might want to pre-soak in an acidic solution.